Good morning. Welcome into Five Clubs. It is good to be back. It's good to be home. I am Gary Williams, and of course, this program is always brought to you by Century Insurance, right by you. If you have business insurance needs, they're going to meet them, and they also invest in golf in great ways. Their relationship with the USGA, with the First Tee, and we are proud that they are our presenting sponsor. And of course, Golf Pride. Played some golf last week, and I was saying to some of the guys, the reverse taper putter grip that I have got on my putter, I've had on it for more than 2 years, proves the quality of the materials. They are the best. They are trusted by more players around the world at every level. And of course, Peter Millar, if you would like this nice little soft jacket I'm wearing, if you would like this Lawrence shirt that is in 3 colors, this wool shirt for the season, you can get that too at petermillar.com. Everything you need on the course and off, they've got it at petermillar.com. Now, we were gone for a week and things have happened, but I just want to set up for you what this week is going to be about, because this week is reflective of what kind of the stage we're in the game of golf. It's a great time, not only in terms of interest, participation, but where we get to play. And so this entire week is going to be devoted primarily to design and the people who are designing these golf courses that we are dying to play, some that are brand new. Many of them are either being transformed, restored, renovated, and the man who's going to join me in studio here in just a couple of minutes is at the forefront of the industry of design. And if you consider just over the last couple of years, some of the work of Andrew Green, where we're talking about major championship venues, somebody who was educated at Virginia Tech, kind of got his baptism into what big-time elite championship golf was in 1997 at the U.S. Open. And it lit a fire in his mind and in his heart. And now he's been entrusted to work on places like Inverness and Sciota and Oak Hill and Interlaken. And now he is in the town that I am proud to call home, Scioto Country Club, which has a relationship with the USGA and has USGA championships on the horizon. His thoughts on the work that he's done, where the industry is, and where it might be going. And also, he has done a lot of work on Donna Ross golf courses, and there are a lot of the architects from the Golden Age that really were clairvoyant about where the game was then, but more importantly, where it was going. So I'm looking forward to having Andrew with me in studio. And by the way, tomorrow, Tyler Ray will be in studio with me. He's working on a golf course that is obviously part of the PGA Tour rotation, the Rocket Classic. And then on Wednesday, Rob Collins, Gil Hanse. So design week for us. But before I give you some opening thoughts on just my interest in design, I do want to mention that in the time that you're gone, even at a time of the year in golf where there's not a great deal going on, tournament golf's still going on. In the year of Tommy, there's a lot of people who've had kind of like their great years. Certainly Scottie Scheffler has had the best year. I think without argument, Rory McIlroy had not only a historic year, but a very personal year. He won the Irish Open, in addition, obviously, completing their career Grand Slam, winning the Players, winning at Pebble Beach. And also, he laid the chip down that he cashed in when he said, we're going to Bethpage 2 years ago. And they came to Bethpage a month ago, and they won that Road Ryder Cup. But Tommy Fleetwood at 34, think about the year that he is having. We don't see guys kind of enter, and it's not like he hasn't been good already. He had won 7 times on the DP World Tour, but when he broke through, he won the Tour Championship, he won the FedEx Cup, and then he has become a stalwart on that European Ryder Cup team. He wins in India, so he wins his 8th win on the DP World Tour. So what I think is great as we get toward the end of 2026, we know what Scottie is. He's the guy. But Rory is still certainly in peak and in prime, and I think our curiosity is, can he be supremely focused, having accomplished all that he said that he wanted to? Xander Schauffele won a week and a half ago, and now Tommy Fleetwood has won again. I think as we get ready to start talking about 26, and you just talk about major championships, we have a list of players, and I'm not forgetting Bryce, and I'm not forgetting Jon Rahm, I'm not forgetting some of the young emerging players. Don't lose sight of the fact that Tommy Fleetwood at 34 could do what a lot of people don't do, and that is win their first major in their mid-30s. Not now. That's the way it used to be. So that was a great story. And oh, by the way, he is beloved in this country. So he's got a persona that 5 years ago we didn't see, and now it's here. All right, let me just give you a few thoughts, not only about where I was, but where we're going to be this week. I was lucky enough to go home for my high school reunion. If you think I'm going to tell you what year, you haven't watched this show long enough. I have a modest amount of vanity that lives inside of me. We'll just omit the year. But I went home, and it wasn't just about seeing people that I love, that people that I grew up with. It was where it all started for me. And that was at Ridgewood Country Club, because my interest in golf, my love for the game of golf, and my curiosity on golf holes began there. Because when I saw the place for the first time before I turned the age of 10, I'm like, this is what land can look like when you play a game that I was kind of interested in, but I was doing everything else. This A.W. Tillinghast design, these 3 9s that had the 1935 Ryder Cup, the 1974 U.S. Amateur, had it again in 2022. So to go back there, and I didn't need to rekindle what I already had inside of me about this place, because it's where I got my dad, and I got him undivided in terms of his attention. And so that A.W. Tillinghast golf course is from the golden age. And then I went down not only the New Jersey Turnpike, but I went to the Philadelphia area. And in 2026, the PGA Championship is going to be held in Aronimink. I had not been there before. So Tillinghast in North Jersey, Donald Ross outside of Philadelphia on the main line. And I had not seen this place before, and it's a charmer from beginning to end. And Gil Hance, similarly as he did at Ridgewood, is the designer in residence. A lot of tree removal. And if you look at this land, the high points of the property are on the perimeter. And they have this beautiful valley that runs through the middle. And when you think about all these great golf courses that we had that came about at the turn of the last century, that was what we all consider the golden age of American architecture. And many of the men who built those golf courses with their mind, with their vision, with their heart, they were inspired by the homeland. And here we sit now, 100 years after what we consider to be the golden age, and it's been resuscitated, or it has been transformed, because I think, and I don't have to wait 20 years to know that this period that we're living in, and I think it started in 1994 with Sandhills, because Sandhills was not only something that you're going, there's no way this is a possibility that it could be what it is, and it is. And it not only changed design because of its minimalist presentation, but it also changed the idea that if it's good enough, no matter where it is, and like, wait a second, I got to fly from anywhere that I am to Denver and get a commuter flight to North Platte and then still drive 70 miles, and yet I'll do it because it's that good and it's only one golf course? Yes. And that was the impetus for Bandon Dunes, and I can go on and on and on and on. Because these golf courses drive as much conversation as it is who's the greatest of all time. Look, we can only say so much about Tiger and Jack, and if you want to enter Hogan or Jones, that's fine. But golf courses is the great grill room conversation. It really shouldn't be a debate, because what you like isn't necessarily what I like. So I don't necessarily subscribe to the idea that this is best. I may like something more than you like it, because like you, your mind and your heart are like the designer himself. It's just what you think and what you feel. But we are in a period where it's not just a lot of these private clubs that are popping up, and there's a lot of them, but it's also something that when I think back to when I was a kid, Pebble Beach was the holy grail. And we knew, and it was not cheap, that if you could get there, that was one of the most important places you needed to check in your box of the places that you felt like you needed to play. Now you have places, it's not just one experience, it's 5, it's 6, it's short courses, it's dinner with friends at places like Sand Valley and Streamsong, and of course Bandon, which Bandon was the place that turned the high-end retail experience into, if you give me a destination, meaning more than one golf course, I'll go with my buddies and I will anchor down and we will sit here and we will breathe it in and we will digest it all. That's where we are. It's never been better. So I honestly think whether you value lists or not, then in 20 years, and it's a question I will ask of Andrew Green, is it possible that half the golf courses in these top 100 lists in 25 or 50 years are going to be 50 golf courses built before World War II and 50 built after 1994? I think it's possible. So Design Week begins for us. I'm looking forward to conversations with men who look out on rugged land. A lot of it you can't see beyond whatever that thicket of trees or vegetation is right in front of them. But they see something we couldn't possibly see. And then 14, 18, 24 months later, there is a canvas and a stage for you to play golf that you can't believe existed. I love it. They do it. It's Design Week. Great to have you with us. It's great to be back on this Monday morning. 5 clubs on Golf Channel and on PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 92. We're back with Andrew Green right after this. Back in on this Monday edition of 5 Clubs Golf Channel. Of course, you can listen. That's PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 92. This segment brought to you by Golf Pride. When it comes to grips and options and qualities of materials, nobody gives you more than Golf Pride, trusted by more players at every level. You saw some of the images as we came back from break of those aerials of some of the great, most important golf courses that we have, major championship venues, and somebody over the last 5, 7, 10 years who's been entrusted to work on those golf courses, transform, renovate, restorate, is Andrew Green. And nice enough for him to make the time despite dealing with a tire issue on the tarmac this morning. When I get a text from a guest who's going to be in the studio that says, by the way, thank you, was after the fact. You didn't say we've got a tire issue. I hope I make it. You said some issues. I'm going to be there. Yeah, How you doing?
I'm great. A little anxiety, but glad to be here.
Well, it's great to have you here. This town, you're going to be here a lot. I know you've been here a lot because you're embarking on something we'll talk about a little bit in detail before I let you go. You're working on several properties in the Carolinas. You've got an original work as well. I'm curious, though, for you, because I know 1997, going to the U.S. Open, volunteering, you actually met somebody who was owner of a construction company that was important as well. You never know who you're going to meet. You never know these interludes in life. But was there somebody, whether it was before then or after then, growing up in Virginia, when it came to building golf courses and designing golf courses, a designer that you were most curious about?
Wow. Yeah, kind of an interesting question. I don't know. I think I just had a fascination with the way the game evolves and the way each golf course is so different. And that I always wanted to go play a new place or a place I hadn't played before. And I think that really drove at least my early fascination with architecture and design. I probably spent most of my time trying to figure it out by drawing holes in the margins of my biology notebook. But my brother certainly was a huge influence. He was on the superintendent path at that time. He had gone to Virginia Tech as well and majored in turfgrass management. And he interned at Harbortown. That was probably one of the first great golf courses I stepped foot on. So he had a huge impact from there. But I think my exploration in design really was a progression of trying to understand what makes golf great and what makes each golf course so uniquely special.
You know, I've seen you do this because I was lucky enough to share the little stage with you when you presented for the first time to the membership at Scioto Country Club. And when you're entrusted to do this work, Inverness, Sciota, Oak Hill, Interlochen, Eastlake, Wannamoisett, Charlotte Country Club, Linville. Well, it's one thing to know that you're going to do good work, but conveying the message for the first time to these people who devote a lot of time in their lives to these places, they mean everything to them. Did you think you had the skill to share your message the way that you do with this eloquence and with this passion and with this practical understanding, that is not easy to do.
Yeah, I don't know. I mean, public speaking was always something, like most people, you're kind of fearful of. And then trying to realize that that was going to have to be part of this journey is convincing people of following you and understanding what's in your head and how you see the ability of taking that and putting it on the ground. And I really feel like my entire life, there were things that happened along the way, everything from, leadership positions in high school and in my church, and, things just kind of happened that gave me the skills that added up to allowing me to be where I am. But I think the key probably was this realization that when you're sitting in the audience, you don't want a line of bull.
Oh, yeah.
You want the truth. And I feel like if you speak from the heart, if you talk about the things you intend to do in a very open and honest fashion, people can believe that. They see and trust you because of that. And so, that is certainly huge in the way that I work, but then also trying to understand, all the different things we can do to help talk about the way the golf holes are going to play for different players, and how that relates to people that are sitting there listening. But man, it is, there's a weight for sure.
I can't imagine.
Especially when you think of all the memories that these places have held, and the people in the audience, hole-in-ones and rounds with their parents, and, teaching their kids how to play the game, and then all of a sudden, we're asking you to change that. That's heavy, for sure.
No question. I mention all these places, and many of them, when people saw them again, or maybe for the first time, but people who are devoted, whether it's to this channel on television or on the radio, they've seen Congressional, the Blue Course, before you did what you did. Inverness as well. You go back to the major championships, and then they see it at the Solheim Cup. They're like, oh my God, what a transformation. And a lot of it is tree removal. And when I asked you that question at Scioto Country Club, you gave, I thought, one of the most powerful explanation as to why you feel the way that you feel about seeing land, whether you're going towards it or you've already experienced it. Can you share that?
Sure. Yeah, there's a great power within the game of golf of having scale. When we think about the great golf courses that are along some massive body of water, all the courses in Scotland, England, of course, the West Coast and East Coast here, the scale and power of having those long vistas, it's hard to wrap yourself around that, right? You feel so small. But when you're playing a golf course, even here in Charlotte, the ability to see where you're headed and where you've been, there's power in that too. And so for me, it's that trying to figure out ways to build anticipation of shots, and then also the reflection of the golf you played. And, the journey through the property, being able to see the highs and lows, the rambling nature of these great pieces of topography, there's a lot of good stuff to gain as the architect from that, and the emotional response you get. And I think the old guys were really good at that. So when you take that with the amount of trees that were planted, especially post-war, and kind of a lot of lower quality, fast growing things, they kind of took away from that experience. But at the same point, playing golf in the United States, trees are going to be part of it for sure. Mm-hmm. So finding that right balance is really important, and trying to safeguard and protect the best trees on property, the ones that mean the most, and not only from sight lines, but strategy and the aesthetics of the property. It's striking that balance that's always a challenge. And you try not to go too far one way or the other, but Eastlake,
Sure.
There's a number of trees that were removed there. But the tree that I love the most is this kind of tree of life that sits between the 6th and 7th hole. And when you tee off on 18, you stare directly at it. It's a great tree. It's in a great spot. So, it's a balance for sure. I think we get emotional pretty hard on both sides. We really need to understand the value of kind of finding that middle ground.
There's a lot of Ross of all these places that I've mentioned, so you've been entrusted and again, I use all these words because I think it's a blending of a lot of it: renovation, restoration, transformation, a lot of Ross work that you've been entrusted with. What was he most clairvoyant about in terms of what he thought the game would likely evolve to? How far ahead of the stuff that he was doing then are a reflection of what he knew might happen?
Well, if you go back and read any of the Golden Age guys, and Ross in particular, you start to see these things that are so relevant 100 years later that it's kind of mind-blowing, because certainly I don't believe those guys thought about, Rory hitting the ball 350 plus. But at the same point, Ross, I love the quote I use in almost every presentation from Ross is, the ideal course is one that tests the first-class player and the everyday golfer. And he was brilliant at that. And I think you combine that mentality with his ability to take a piece of property and unlock it and route golf holes that are very unique, very special, but it also allows for this kind of balance of dramatic topography, scale, but then also walkability. His golf courses are so great to walk, and that's a huge thing for me. And anything we can do, even if we're tweaking some of the yardages and things for the modern game to embrace that walkability, that's huge.
I think, first of all, we are in Ross country. The Carolinas, he was very prolific. Obviously, he's got a lot of work up in the Northeast quarter, New England. But you think of the Carolinas, and most people start with number 2. And I hear this from a lot of buddies, a lot of people I play golf with. It's like it's a Ross green, and they think about those greens, and those greens are, first of all, are not what they were in their origin. Is there a misunderstanding of what his primary design principles were?
Yeah, I think that's an excellent question, and if you really take the time to study the evolution of putting surfaces, and even the ones that are built and cared for and quote unquote never change, they do change. Years of aerification, maintenance, all the things that go into it, the greens evolve. A lot of them tend to be rounded, and they tend to kind of pillow or balloon in the center, hence the kind of upside down saucers.
Yes.
Number 2. I think the magical thing of looking at Ross's work is when you look at his green designs and details, he designed a lot of golf courses, unbelievable amount of golf courses. But the intention that I feel he put into every putting surface is real. And there's very interesting, unique shapes, one-of-a-kind shapes, like who would ever think of making a putting green this shape kind of stuff
right.
in his archive. And I think a lot of the golf course plays backwards from each green. And so the amount of intent he put into those putting surfaces then relates to how the golf hole plays, the variety at which you can play it day in and day out. Those are the things that I really am inspired by.
I think one of the other things we hope that the viewer and listener gets this week is that obviously what you do and your vision and the vision of other people who design golf courses is at the center of it all. But there's a layering to this process, and I'm talking about the superintendent and the importance of this symbiotic relationship that you hope you have with the people who are there from the agronomic standpoint, the people from a construction standpoint. I mentioned, I think was it Chip McDonald?
Chip, yeah.
Who you met in 1997. So there's a layering of it. Let me start with the agronomics of it. I think that you take incredible care with understanding what could grow best here, what does grow best here. And we're at a time where there's all these different types of options to choose from. How challenging or how beneficial is it that you have more options than we had 20, 50, let alone 75 years ago?
Sure. Yeah, I think I'll start, and my team will probably be chuckling along with me, but the project is kind of broken into 3 pieces: the design, the execution, and the follow-through. And the follow-through is the grow-in and the maintenance of the golf course. And it's probably more than a third, and if it's a third, it's the 34% of the third. Being able to have a great surface to play the game on is past where we kind of leave off. So whatever we can do to empower the superintendent and their team to be successful is top of mind for us. And the technology and the changes and the advancements that we have are insane. I mean, hydronics, which I'm not sure how much your audience knows, but the ability to put hot and cold water underneath a putting surface to change the soil temperature, huge advancement.
Yes.
And, so there's tons of different things to work through. I think the big thing is trying to find the right grass and the right methods for your property, your environment, your style of play. And then the superintendent and their team really has to buy in and feel like we're giving them the tools to succeed. So we spend an inordinate amount of time in the planning stages, making sure all the specifications, everything is in line for what we're going to create, and then supporting the superintendent and his staff after the fact. And at the end of the day, it's really an amazing team effort when everything aligns and you get the grass down and the golf course comes to life. There's no better day than the first day the sod goes down.
I think that my view of the people who lead your industry, the design industry, you're a blending of I think, artist, scientist, archaeologist. And so if I asked you, do you think that you are more of one than the other two? Do you think you are more of a scientist than you are an artist? Like, I think all of you possess qualities and traits that are representative of those three types of people. You are that type of person, are you not?
Yeah. And it's probably the order of which those have kind of been introduced to me, or I feel like I've grown in each of those areas. I probably start with the science part. I started doing golf course maintenance. I started on a string trimmer. So trying to understand how to make sure a golf course can be well maintained is important to me because I understand the pain. That's not to say I won't make a few things difficult on the superintendent, but I get it, right? That's really important. I think the understanding the history of the game, we're all connected. We are playing the same game that was found in Scotland many, many, many years ago. So there's always a connection to that. And I think the stories and the ability to experience the history real time that is 100 years old has a lot of power too. And then I feel like there's a lot of history on the game of golf and on golf courses that makes sense. And often when we turn our back on the way a golf course was founded, that's often when things don't seem like they fit together well. If we can understand original intent, push it to today, I think we're winning. And so then the last part of that is the artistry part. Certainly I've always enjoyed creating things all the way back as long as I can remember, always been a creative person. But understanding and exploring your design abilities as an architect is an evolution for sure. And trying to become more free and have this thing where what's expected probably isn't right. What's unexpected is probably a better direction. But I think it takes a little time as an architect to get comfortable with that idea.
Well, as people know, you obviously, you did the work at East Lake where the PGA Tour season concludes, but then we look at these major championship venues that have most recently been played, and people saw Oak Hill a couple of years ago and said, wow, this is very, very different. There is a location of a USGA championship next year that we're going to talk about when we continue, not to mention the work you're doing in a couple places here in the Carolinas, and also the original work that you have outside of Greenville, South Carolina. It's great to have Andrew Green in studios. We begin Design Week here on 5 Clubs Golf Channel. Of course, PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM, Channel 92 as well. We're back with Andrew right after this. Welcome back this Monday edition of 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel. And you can listen, it's PGA Tour Radio, Sirius XM's Channel 92. This segment brought to you by Century Insurance. If you have business insurance needs, they want to meet them, and they will, and they're invested in golf in great ways, from the USGA to the first tee. And of course, it is Design Week. You saw those images. The man in those images, Andrew Green, is with me now. He's got so much important work that he's doing on restoration work. We're going to get to this original project he's got outside of Greenville, South Carolina. I mentioned East Lake, and everybody sees it every year. It concludes the PGA Tour schedule. But Oak Hill a couple years ago, PGA Championship. Congressional has got so many important events, got a Future Ryder Cup, major championships. I do want to ask you first, though, about Sciota, because they've got the U.S. Senior Open next year, and we don't know because he just had another back procedure at the age of 50 if Tiger can play. I think there would be sweet irony if he could, because going for his 10th USGA championship at the childhood home of Jack Nicklaus. But it gets me to back to what I was saying about being an archaeologist and all these other things, but you're also an investigator. To what can I find that may unlock what used to be? So you find this Dudley Fisher aerial photograph, the view of the dodo bird, which was part of the inspiration to the work that you did there. Let's talk about Sciota. It's where Jack learned the game, learned to love the game in just outside of Columbus, Ohio. What was it about Sciota that tickled you about that whole process?
Well, the golf course had kind of lost its way. Between the Depression and World War II, certainly it took a toll on the course. And while the framework of that was still intact when Jack grew up and learned the game, sometime in the mid-'60s, significant alterations were made by Dick Wilson and his team. And that had been kind of the golf course that the club had been utilizing. And when we started conversations about what could be or what once was, certainly this dodo bird image became kind of the calling card. And so what it was a cartoon done by Dudley Fisher. We feel like it was based off some kind of aerial photo, or maybe he went up in an airplane and kind of got an aerial perspective. But the crazy thing is that we took that, and I could go into Google Earth, and you can manipulate your three-dimensional kind of view. And within just a little bit of time, I was able to perfectly line up the dodo bird image with the existing aerial. And so we knew that while it was a cartoon, it was real. And then we layered that in with a tremendous amount of history, everything back to the 26 US Open. There was a lot of information from that time period. And that built a case to put it back. And I remember very clearly, I was on the way, I believe, to my daughter's field day, elementary school field day, and I got a call from the club, and I'm on with maybe a dozen members, and I said, "You deserve this. The golf course that you once had, the golf course that you were founded upon, was so unique, had so many very cool features. You have to do this. It is what you deserve." And it was a journey to get the members on board. The golf course they were playing was pretty well respected, but it was quite repetitive. A lot of front right, front left bunkers, very much aerial game from Dick Wilson. The Ross course, tons of more variety, amazing green shapes. These hummocks or mounds that are just insane. A lot of short grass, things that you could utilize to have a lot of variety no matter your skill level. And when we put it all together, I'm very, very proud of what we have on the ground. And speaking of superintendents, Bob Becker, the superintendent there, and his team do a phenomenal job. And in combination of those two pieces, I think we've really created a wonderful product for the members, but also for the world. And very much looking forward to the Senior Open. I'm already booked to be there all week. There's some rumors maybe I even might hop on a bag for somebody. We'll see. I don't know how much the USGA is going to like that. But no, I'm very excited about that week. I hope Tiger can play.
Yeah, the level of inside information is beyond thought. I want to ask you about Charlotte, because I think Scioto Country Club, I think there's similarities to Sciota, and I don't want to say that Charlotte was so altered from what Ross originally intended, but I do think to a degree. And you could say to whatever degree you want, but I also think that there is a vibrancy to Sciota and their membership and the presentation and the homes that are close but don't encroach upon the golf course. It's this wonderful neighborhood that kind of is recessed from what your golfing experience is. Tell me about what Charlotte provides you as an opportunity and what it was and what it can be again.
Well, certainly I think the club has protected their Ross tradition over the years. I don't think they ever meaningfully took a swerve from that direction. But I do think, over time things happen. One of the biggest adjustments we see to Golden Age courses is the introduction of a practice facility. And so when that was introduced at Charlotte, they rearranged some golf holes to make it work. We actually just finished the practice facility there on the screen that's newly grassed, really trying to respect the Ross flavor, but give the member a great place to practice and experience the game in a short amount of time. And then this is a little short course we put at the back of the range. But the crazy thing, when we started investigating that, there was a lot of missing space. There was room to do things. So part of it was expanding the practice area, like you see in those images, and part of it was rerouting 14 through 18 to better represent the golf holes that Ross had originally laid out. And with that, it's an introduction of a double dog leg par 5 on 16, a drivable par 4 on 14, I'm sorry, and then 17 is a really long par 3. And the 18th hole really is unchanged from what the members played previously. But when we start to add those pieces in, not only is the member experience elevated, and now all of a sudden they can enjoy the game in many different ways with the enhancements to practice, but then also you get these really cool golf holes that fit on the ground really well. They create a lot of interest, there's risks and rewards, and they're just a lot of fun to play. And so I think that's a basis of what we're trying to do. And then, with green contours and bunkers, there were some bunkers that were really, really severely deep, and some things that were just hard to access as an average member just walking physically in and out of them. Those are some of the things we're addressing on those other 13 holes.
As far as new projects, for all of this great restoration work that you're doing, renovation, transformation work, before I ask you specifically about Kuanu, I want to talk about kind of what we've seen over the last 20 years, and that is this pursuit of sandy soil and these sandy pieces of land, and it's great, and I love a lot of it. Do you think that there will be a time that there will be a shift back to where, because I think about all this great work you've done, these great American Parkland-style golf courses that are so important to the history of the game in this country, and now it's the pursuit of where's sand? Do you think that there will be a leaning back in the other direction or a balancing of it all?
Well, I hope so for my sake, because certainly I'm doing some really cool projects on kind of upland sites or sites that are out of sand. We have 3 that are kind of quote unquote new, kind of running neck and neck. Scioto Country Club in Michigan, complete reconstruction of that golf course, rerouting, a little sandy, but the topography is insane, unbelievable topography. Firefly, we're just finishing that outside of Nashville. Heavier soils, but some really kind of cool elegance between kind of gentle areas and then some severe topography changes that we could create really exciting golf shots on. And then Kuanu in Greenville, the most amazing piece of ground I've seen in a very, very long time.
Wow.
It is absolutely stunning, and it makes for great golf because the highs and lows are at really cool positions where you can route through the golf course without feeling like you're playing back and forth or soldier golf. And then you get just this opportunity to play to certain high points or low points that make a lot of sense for the modern game. So we're really excited about this one.
When you see a piece of land like this, and I was saying this at the beginning of the program, you see things that we can't see. We may love golf. We may have a mild ability to look at something and say that's a nice feature, that's a good feature. But you see things, when you saw this land for the first time, first of all, how big is the parcel of land itself?
Yeah, 360 acres.
Wow, that's big. To give people an idea that Augusta National, I'm not talking about the footprint of the club, which seems to get bigger every year, I'm talking about that's a big piece of land. And how quickly can you allocate on that 350, how much of the acreage is going to be used for the golf course?
Yeah, so one of the things we first did is kind of took the lower section that was in the floodplain and said, hey, let's not go down there unless we absolutely have to. And it did a couple of things. One is it gave us kind of a sanctuary for nature. The property had a long history of kind of being a hunting place and a place to kind of, a game preserve kind of feel. It also made for where, let's not put golf at risk of flooding, right? That's smart. So that set aside a few acres down low, which is great, and we can do a couple good things with that. I think the other thing we started to look at was just the way the topography ranges. And when you look at a topo map as an architect, or at least for me, I'm looking for contours that move in all the different directions. So each contour represents a foot or 2 feet of elevation change. And if it's one plane or one plane that has a little bit of wiggles to it, you can do something with it. You could play up and down and across in both directions and get good golf. But man, if that property really starts to spin and move, now all of a sudden the sky's the limit. And for me, it was in the process of routing the golf course, things just naturally started to connect. And when you can get landing zones at 300 plus or minus today with room to know into the future if the game continues to expand, that we can adjust. And then we can also get forward tees to 150 yards, gets to some of these interesting points. Now all of a sudden we have a magical place to play the game of golf where everybody can go and experience this wonderful part of nature. And for us and for me, my challenge is to go there and build the golf course without moving hardly any dirt. You saw that one image, that's building the driving range tee. We'll move some dirt for that. We got to get a flat tee. But for the greens and for the golf holes, I really want it to fit on the ground, just as if Donald Ross, William Flynn, George Thomas, Mackenzie, whoever had done it.
Last thing, and it'll be quick, because I know you'll probably have a good answer to this, and one that is always easy. Is there a place that if I put you on the first tee and you just walk the 18 holes, that you can learn the most about what you do and is the most inspiring design anywhere in the world? Where would it be that you would just walk those holes and people, but more importantly you, can appreciate and learn what you do better than anywhere else?
Wow. Yeah, it's hard to say just one. I'll go a little off the beaten path. Wanamoyset in Rhode Island is probably the most amazing golf course on a very tiny piece of ground.
Tiny.
90 plus acres.
Yeah.
But you hit every golf shot. It's a par 69, which most people would say you can't have a golf course that's under par 70. Yeah, you can.
Yeah, you can, and you can also have an elite amateur there every year, which they do and have for years and years and years.
And I think that piece of ground, just walking it, looking at the way the greens sit, the way the shots pair up together, how you play one hole to the next, and the value of that experience, tremendous. You can learn a tremendous amount of stuff about architecture there.
Thank you for making the time. You got to get to Linville.
Yes, sir.
Speaking of charming, one of the most special places, the Osceola Lodge, all of it, and I know you are very excited, as are some members that are close by to what you're doing up there. Thanks so much.
Thanks for having me.
Andrew Green with us as we begin Design Week, and those were winning words presented by Century Insurance. When it comes to business insurance needs, I promise you they will meet them. My final thoughts, we set up a Tuesday right after this. Back on 5 Clubs here on Golf Channel, also Channel 92 on Sirius XM's PGA Tour Radio. This segment is brought to you by Peter Millar. If you like the look of this Barkley soft jacket, you can get it. Maybe I'm not the ideal person to represent how great this jacket is, but this and everything else you need for the season and every season is at Peter Millar, petermillar.com. And you know what? There's probably a retail store nearby. They've got them all over the country. All right, before I get to setting up tomorrow, just one final thought about thinking about where we are with design and where golf courses are. If you look, and you can value lists however way you want to, and I think they're fun and they can lend themselves to debate, you really shouldn't get into arguments about golf courses because they'll never end. Just agree to disagree and realize that your feelings about one is not the feelings that somebody else has. But think about the top 10 in this country that dots virtually every list. And they all start with Pine Valley, and whether it's Shinnecock or Cypress Point next, and National Golf Links, and Marion, and Oakmont, and Chicago Golf Club, and those are part of what I said earlier. That's the golden age of architecture. And of course, Pine Valley, you know, you go back to 1913 and in its origin, but really from then to the middle, right before World War II, or really right before Prohibition, it was really World War I into the 30s. And now look at all of the names of these golf courses, starting with Sandhills, which was 1994, and then you look at Pacific Dunes and Bandon Dunes and those other properties, and Caprock Ranch, and the places like Sand Valley. Those built after the turn of this century. And I honestly believe that in 20 years, and maybe not, it won't even take that long, that places like Tree Farm and Old Barnwell and Lido, they're going to either be the back half of the top 100 or be encroaching into the top 40. And so it's going to be this blending of what we got 110 to 115 years ago to what was built yesterday. So I can appreciate what we got, and I do, 115 years ago, but I love what we're getting right now. And somebody who's doing some of that work is Tyler Ray. He's got Old Sawmill north of Charleston as South Carolina is exploding with golf course development. He'll be with me in studio. He's also redoing Detroit Golf Club, site of the Rocket Classic. He's with me in studio. And then, of course, on Wednesday, Rob Collins and Gil Hans. Gil, of course, a contributor here at 5 Clubs, and Rob Collins. When you're commissioned to build the second golf course at Royal Dornick, you talk about pressure. His thoughts on doing that as well. So Design Week is off and running. Thank you to Andrew Green as you look at these beautiful aerials of all these wonderful golf courses. For all of us here at 5 Clubs, have a great Monday. We'll see you tomorrow.